Whilst we all love a good piece of tech, a cheap piece of tech is even better. So without further ado, here is my review of the $99 Lenovo Tab 2 A7. So what's up guys, and first thing I want to get out of the door right away is that personally, I've actually bought this tablet to use primarily as an on-camera viewfinder. Now every video that I've made before this one, I've shot it using that tiny little LCD on the back of my DSLR and just wasn't cutting it. So I decided to have a look around online for a cheap monitor that I could just hook onto the top of my DSLR. But I just wasn't finding any decent ones, or let alone semi-decent ones for under 150 bucks. Then I noticed a few guys using their Android tablets and a little app called DSLR Controller, and then enter the Lenovo Tab 2 A7. Now, the tablet actually has very similar, if not better resolution than most of the dedicated LCD viewfinders in that 150 buck price category. But where the LCD viewfinders are primarily just for viewing your image on a larger scale, you can actually use the app on the tablet to control every single feature or thereabouts that your DSLR has. So for example, you can change ISO, color balance, aperture, shutter speed, and like I said, pretty much every other feature. And so there's really no question which way I was gonna go, and that's why I bought the tablet. Now, I probably will do a dedicated video sometime in the future showing you, how to set it up and the way that I use it. But for the rest of this video, we're gonna just stick to looking at this tablet as purely a tablet. So first up, let's take a look at the A7's internal specs. So we've got a 1.3 GHz quad-core CPU with 1 GB of RAM and 8 GB of internal storage that's expandable up to 32 GB with a micro SD card. Now when I ran this thing through Geekbench, it delivered a single core score of 358 and a multi-core score of 1165. Now this might not seem like much, and don't get me wrong, this thing isn't going to be a power machine, but with day-to-day tasks like writing notes, checking emails, and browsing the web, you're not going to notice much of any lag at all. Even when you get into gaming, this tablet does a very decent job for what it is. This is me playing Temple Run with the visual settings turned all the way up, and I have noticed no lag at all. Here I am playing Deer Hunter 2016, which is quite a visual intensive game, and there is a little bit of lag here and there, but by no means does it make the game unplayable. Now I wouldn't say buy this tablet if gaming is going to be your primary use, but just know that gaming is very much playable and even a good experience on this tablet. Now moving on to the display, and the A7 is on the smaller side of tablets at 7 inches, and it has a screen resolution of 600 by 1024 pixels, giving it a pixel density of 170 pixels per inch. It's an IPS LCD display, and whilst it certainly can't claim to be the crispiest device you'll come across, it certainly isn't noticeably bad. In fact, the only time you'll really notice the display being a lower resolution is when viewing videos on YouTube. Despite the big display, the maximum quality you can watch your videos is actually only just 720p. Other than that, you can only really see the pixels if you're looking really closely at super detailed things like text, and I'm really only referring to that tiny thin text under app icons, because you can't even notice it when reading articles or ebooks. And so for under $100, I'm pleasantly surprised by this screen. Next up is the battery, and in the A7 we have a 3450 mAh battery, which is very solid, and when you consider it's only got a less than 720p display to output and only runs on Wi-Fi, this thing is killer. What this pertains to be is around up to 7 or 8 hours of solid usage time and way more standby time. Now, even though I hesitate to mention it because I'm not the biggest advocate for taking photos on tablets, but for the sake of this video, the Lenovo has plonked a 2 megapixel rear shooter on the A7 and why is it even there, 0.3 megapixel front facing camera, which will literally only be good for making cheap and nasty Skype calls. The rear shooter is meh. I mean, it's not horrible, but given the quality sensors getting dished out on pretty much every smartphone these days, no matter the price, I can't really see you using the camera on this tablet all too often. But I guess it is handy being there regardless. Now really quickly, let's chat about the design. And in the A7, we've got a device that's definitely not showing off, but still manages to produce a really solid feeling tablet. It's compact enough that when using in portrait mode, whilst it's definitely not a one-handed device, you can certainly hold it in one hand comfortably while using the other to operate. And yet, when using it in landscape mode, you have all this screen real estate that it feels like a much bigger device. It is an all-plastic unibody tablet, but it just feels nice and sleek in the hand with that thin profile coming in at 9.4mm. Now, I mentioned in the unboxing video that the A7 comes with Android 4.4.2 KitKat out of the box, and that I had heard that there was a Lollipop update floating around online. But what I've actually come to realize is that because this is the A7-20 model, which was actually only just released in September, as opposed to the A7-10 and A7-30 models, which were released earlier this year, the Lollipop update was actually only scheduled just for November of 2015. And whilst that has come and gone already, there's probably one coming around the corner anyway. So whilst I did toy with the idea of updating manually using a custom ROM, I figure an update is likely to be coming soon. So I decided that I wasn't going to risk bricking the device, and I've just stayed on Android 4.4.2 KitKat for the time being. In saying that though, I've been pleasantly surprised by the clean look of KitKat on this Lenovo tablet. Notifications even strongly resemble the ones in Lollipop, and as soon as you install a custom launcher such as the Google Now or Nova launchers, you're hardly going to notice the difference. Now touching on audio quality real quick, and whilst that may kind of look like an ear speaker, it's actually a single front-facing loudspeaker. Now, Lenovo have this Dolby Audio logo printed on the back of their tablet, and it's something they seem to pride themselves in. And whilst the speaker does output a decent volume of audio, which will certainly do the trick, it's definitely not the highest of quality and even sounds a little tinny. Where the Dolby situation might actually be noticeable is when wearing any form of earphones. Audio is rich and bassy and sounds really good. Despite its low resolution screen, this is actually a fairly decent media consumption device, perfect for watching movies and reading ebooks and browsing the web. And then when you step back and remember that this thing is only $99, it's an absolute winner in my books. For me, someone who has never owned a tablet before this one, it's absolutely adequate as a tablet device. So whilst this definitely isn't a high-end tablet that's going to be a high-end performer, it was never claiming to be. For under $100, this is a little ripper of a device, and with Christmas right around the corner, this is probably going to be the perfect gift for someone who hasn't owned a tablet before. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.